Welcome to the Upbeat Hang, and you're getting the behind the scenes right now of Cabo figuring out his equipment. This is my favorite part right here. This is the real gem of the show.
Okay, folks, hold on. I want you guys to know something because you guys don't know what goes on out there. Cabo is technically challenged, but getting better. But what happens here every podcast, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, and I hope I don't offend anyone by using the wrong term, but I grew up on airplanes. So when I was a kid, we flew everywhere, and I always remember stewardesses because I always had crushes on them. When we get started
Flight
with the
attendants.
Flight attendants now, I'm sorry, okay. So invariably, when we get started, it's like the pilot ate the bad fish, and he's sick, and I'm the stewardess sitting behind the wheel, the cockpit, and Duke is telling me what to do. Okay, turn this on. If you pull your flaps down, then pull the nose up, and we go through this every podcast. But Duke is our tech guy who gets us through everything, right, Amy?
Yes, he is. Oh, thank you, Duke.
So I just wanted to say, you guys don't see what goes on, but it's a half hour of calamity, and it's usually me, and Duke is walking me through everything. Show me this, put it down here. It just reminded me when I was a kid of that famous movie where everyone eats the fish except the one guy, and he flies the plane. So that probably makes no sense, but you get it.
It was called Airplane, wasn't it?
No, that wasn't a comedy. There was
Chicken
another
or the
movie
fish?
about that. Chicken or the fish? I don't know. I think it was after that other movie I saw, What Say You? I think that was the name of it. I'm not sure. So, yeah, anyways, Amy, we did have a little bit of a torrential storm coming through here.
Gosh. Yes, we did.
Not talking about my in-laws, that's for sure, but we did have some problems come through here today with some bad weather, but thank God everybody's okay and we're up and running. So, Duke, what's on your mind tonight? What are we doing?
Well, I just want to welcome everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, and that sort of thing. Today we have a special episode where we are going to talk about Freddie Mercury, the great Freddie Mercury. Isn't that right, Amy?
That is correct. So did you guys ever see those memes on Facebook and they ask you if there was somebody that you could have a conversation with from your past or from the past who is now in heaven, who would it be? I see those, they come across Facebook all the time. I have got to tell you, my answer would be the charismatic, dazzling, dynamic, ubiquitous. Do you like that word, Ken?
Wow. I got to pay $10 for that. Oh, I like that. Say that 3 times fast.
Greatest rock entertainer of all time. It's all my opinion. Nobody other than, tell me you've heard this name, Farouk Balsara. Anybody?
Of course.
That is the amazing Freddie Mercury.
Amy, tell us, don't hold back. How do you really feel?
I am so obsessed with this man. Oh, God. I just think he's just amazing.
Well, let's back up for a second. Drummer, singer. Why? This is your Neil Peart, or I should say.
Yes.
What is it about Freddie? Because I think we might actually wind up interviewing you, maybe a little bit more than talking about Freddie. What is it about Freddie, boy, that really attracts you so much as a singer?
Oh, his voice is just amazing. And his personality is great too. However, what we see on the stage from Freddie is not who Freddie is off the stage. And I have a ton of respect for that because I come from that theater world as well. And it's very theatrical. You're playing a character while you're on the stage. Just so entertaining, and I can't say enough good about him. He's amazing.
Now, are you talking about the public Freddie Mercury or the private Freddie Mercury, or both?
Both.
That you're in love with?
I'm probably more in love with the entertainer than I am the off-camera, off-stage Freddie.
And Duke, interrupt me here anytime, please. But at what point?
So I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You first. You first after me. When did you start really getting into Queen? Because I know when I got into them, but when did you get into Queen?
Well, the obvious was Bohemian Rhapsody when that came out. I was a kid, and it was just something about it made everybody, made their ears like open up and say, what is this? This is so cool. And the weird lyrics, and it was just, very amazing. What is that weird sound I'm hearing?
It's almost like the speed pedal in the Lemon Song by Led Zeppelin, right? Actually, that's
drummer
a true fact,
joke.
That's
joke.
a drummer joke, but that's a true thing. That's true. But I don't know what that sound is.
Do you really want to know what the sound is? Because I could tell you.
I do want to know.
Okay, so a couple of hours ago, I sent my family down away so that we could do this podcast, and it's getting a little late, so that's them coming home. You hear them opening the doors.
Okay, that works. That's cool.
But I think we're done, so that's all good.
So, Aim, let's go back. Where did we leave off? Where did your fascination start chronologically? Where did it start?
Oh, it's years now because, like you mentioned before, I'm a singer. So it's been years of just obsessive listening and loving the voice of Freddie Mercury. There is not a voice, in my opinion, that is comparable to what he can do. Here's this person with a 4-octave range, a legitimate 4-octave range. It's nearly impossible to have that. And so it's gone back to childhood, really. He's just amazing.
Correct me if I'm wrong. What is Mariah Carey's range, just to kind of put it in perspective?
Oh, geez.
I'm not really sure, but it doesn't compare to Freddie Mercury.
Now,
nobody compares to him.
Now, you don't feel, let me ask Duke. Duke, do you feel that there's any, from what Amy said, do you feel that there's any singers that would compare to Freddie, I guess, of all time, whether today or back then when Freddie was alive?
That's a tough thing for me because to me, they're like, flavors of ice cream. One person loves rum raisin, another one's like, ugh, and somebody loves chocolate, someone loves, mint chocolate chip. I think Freddie Mercury is more in the popular, he may be the chocolate or the vanilla, but yeah, I think, it's a real personal choice. Now, I think he was amazing. I think he was really amazing. I pulled up a little quote here. Roger Daltrey of The Who called Freddie Mercury the best virtuoso rock and roll singer of all time. He could sing in any style. He could change his style from line to line. And God, that's an art. He was brilliant at it. That's Roger Daltrey.
I love you, Roger. He's spot on.
Who? I would. Yeah, exactly. I would agree. Amy, I want to ask you a question because I noticed this talking about other singers just for a second, particularly with Jim Morrison because I'm a big Doors fan. Do you think Freddie Mercury's stock has risen because he's not with us anymore? Because it's always seemed to me, I wasn't around in the Doors in the days of the Doors. Say that 3 times fast. But it seemed to me that the Doors almost escalated in popularity because Jim Morrison had died. Do you think that with Freddie Mercury, there's any of that factor, particularly when you think about the movie Bohemian Rhapsody?
I think that Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, brought him back to life. But I also think that during the time that he was alive versus posthumously, is that what they call it?
After he died.
Posthumously, yes.
Posthumously. I think that I don't think that he got more recognition after his death. I think that he has continued to have that strength in the music world even after death, but I don't believe that it got stronger after death. But I do believe that maybe people who didn't know him, who were not fans of him, have now become fans of him due to the movie Bohemian Rhapsody.
Now, Amy, Duke, I don't know. Duke, did you? I was stuttering there. Duke, have you seen the movie?
Yes.
Okay, I did not see the movie, folks. I know Amy did and Duke did. Duke, what were your thoughts on the movie?
I hate to be cynical, but there was a lot that I did not like about it, except for, what's his name? Remy, the actor.
Oh, what a great actor. He was identical to Freddie.
I wish I could remember his name. I feel like a fool. But anyway, he was phenomenal as Freddie Mercury. Phenomenal.
Really was.
I didn't like that. I understand why they changed certain things, but I didn't like some of the things that they changed because I felt that their involvement was a little too heavy. And if it were produced by somebody who was not within the band, I kind of feel like it may have been a little more, less of a story and more of a real retelling of what happened. When I tell a story about something that happened in my past, I color it with my own perspective, and if I don't like the way I looked in my memory, I'm going to change it. If it makes me look better, or in a story, I'm going to make it sound better for the people if that's what I want the people to perceive. And I'm afraid that there was some of that in there. I don't know that that's the case, but I can say that they did the We Are the Champions for COVID they redid it with Adam Lambert. And not taking anything away from Adam Lambert, it's just nowhere near the energy, the power, the presence that Freddie had. Freddie just had something that was larger than life, and I think the guys in Queen were able to be bigger than themselves because they worked off of Freddie's energy. Without him, without that energy, I don't know that they would have ever been anything. And I'm not saying they're not brilliant in their own way, but I don't think they had that same magnitude that Freddie enabled them with.
Right.
Amy, what were your thoughts on the movie? Would you agree with what Duke said, or do you have anything different about that?
I really enjoyed the movie. The order of, the sequence was a little bit off, but outside of that, I think that if you were not a fan, that you would not realize that the sequence was off. You would just enjoy it. Now, it's a movie, so movies have to be dramatized. So I think that if they had just given, here's the life of Freddie, here's the life of Brian May, blah, 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 it would never have been nearly as entertaining, and it wouldn't have gotten ratings. And everything is about ratings and money in the entertainment industry. It's
Please
not
subscribe.
about... That's right. And if you subscribe to the Upbeat Hang... But in all seriousness, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to how much money can this make? And if it was a boring movie, nobody would have gone to see it.
And you know what's funny about what you both just said, or what Amy just really said, is, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the rub of Bohemian Rhapsody when they first delivered the piece, that the record company said, what is this? It was
Isn't that
a long
amazing?
song. It was a long song. It was an unusual format. And Freddie Mercury was hell-bent on doing this song and believed in it, and he was proven right in the end, or way before the end. He was proven right immediately. And I think what Duke said was very apropos, that that was certainly the moment that they came out like gangbusters, that everyone remembers the first time they saw that video or heard that song, because there have not been, I would suggest, there haven't been many songs written like that since or even before.
Right. Completely true.
So,
and in reference to the song Bohemian Rhapsody, it was actually 3 songs that Freddie was writing, and he wound up combining all 3 of the songs into the one song, and that's where it all came from. So it could have been just an ordinary love song or an ordinary just a story. But instead, he had 3 completely different topics that he brought into one song to make it this phenomenon, truly. I mean,
now,
it was number 1 on the charts for
forget it.
I think it was 9 weeks straight.
Which is incredible.
It is.
Particularly for a song of that length. Even
Right.
if you like it, even for the song of that length. I have a question for you both, because, folks, we're going to try and stump each other here. I'm sure these guys will understand. They'll probably get my stuff because they really do a lot of research. What was Freddie's favorite song? I want you to choose from the following 5. Fat Bottom Girls, You're My Best Friend, Bohemian Rhapsody, Another One Bites the Dust, or Somebody to Love?
Ladies first.
I'm going with Somebody to Love
Why?
because I know it.
So in other words, you knew the answer to the question. Why do I bother? Why do I bother?
Oh, he wrote that song and he...
Wait. I'm going with Somebody to Love.
Duke, you are an innovator royale. My God. How does he do it, folks? He can't be stopped. He can only be contained. Amazing. I give
Amy,
you both credit.
Amy,
they got my answer.
You were saying, Amy.
What he wrote that song and he just was impressed with himself when he wrote it.
Oh, that's not about Mary Austin?
It's, well, nobody really knows if it's about Mary Austin or who it was truly about, because there's all mixed stories about that. And like I said, if there was one person that I could have a conversation with, it would be him. And I would ask him that question directly.
Well, the gospel influence clearly is what he loved about it, because that was something, the way it was recorded with the voices and so forth, it was something different that they had done up to that point. And I actually remember when I first heard the song, I didn't think it was Queen. I didn't actually know what it was because it was so gospel laden, which is nothing wrong with that. But the first time I heard it, I thought, did I tune into a Christian or church station? Duke, I want to throw a question out to you as we're talking about primarily Freddie, but Queen. I wonder if you could put your mind in Roger Taylor, the drummer's seat for a second. What do you think, a la Foo Fighters, a la other, perhaps Phil Collins, Genesis, or Phil Collins as a solo artist? What do you think it's like for the other band members to play when you have a band like Queen that has a superstar? And I will argue, unlike Led Zeppelin, where Jimmy Page and Robert Plant were seen almost as a duo, as I understand, and it's subject to opinion, so don't bite my head off, but most people did not think of Robert Plant above Jimmy Page or vice versa. They were seen almost like Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley. However, in Queen, I would argue that as much as Brian May was popular, people knew Roger Taylor. I guarantee a lot of people, if you would ask them, probably don't remember who the bass player in Queen was. But my question is, what do you think it was like, from everything you know, to play in a band where the singer or one member is so elevated and such a revered superstar like that? Do you think that's an extra burden on, for example, using Roger Taylor just as a focal point?
In his circumstance, I don't think so. I think it was a blessing because Freddie revered that band. He revered John Deacon. He revered Brian May. He revered Roger Taylor. And they were all really talented. And like I said before, I think Freddie brought out more than they would have brought out had they been on their own. Roger's a great singer, a really musical drummer, and it was just an amazing, amazing team.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was an incredible team. And the band that they had prior, they meaning Brian May and Roger Taylor, they was Smile. When they lost their singer, their vocalist, and Freddie became their vocalist, that was the best day of their lives, all of their lives, because
I would have to say so.
Yep, that is when Queen formed. Yep.
Amy, let me ask you, we've seen this with Led Zeppelin where they tried to replace John Bonham, and you've seen it with other groups where a major member has lost or was lost or passed away. Were you surprised that Queen tried to reform, but not knocking Adam Lambert at all, but regardless of who the singer was, were you surprised that they tried to perform and reform with a different singer?
I would have been surprised if it was anybody other than Adam Lambert.
Why?
And because I think Adam Lambert is second to Freddie. I truly do. I think that there could not have been anybody who would have been a better selection to, I can't say replace, but to fill that role. He has the theatrics behind him. He's got that same amount, that same level of energy, that presence on the stage that is close to comparable to what Freddie delivered. So if it had been any other choice, I may have said to you, you know what, they should never have done it. But I think that Adam does a pretty good job. I really do.
I have to completely disagree. I think that any band trying to replace such an iconic creator and innovator, which Freddie was, is, they're shooting up a tree that it's just not going to happen. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Adam Lambert, but Freddie was an innovator. He created things that he melded things that seemed impossible to, fuse together. And he did it with grace and he did it with style. And, every song, every new cut that you would listen to on a record, it was like, wow, what style is this song going to be? Wow, what song, I don't know that I would hear many people say that about Adam Lambert. I don't know.
See, I don't think that they're trying to replace Freddie. Like, you can't but Freddie is not replaceable.
Correct.
It's impossible. But I do believe, again, it's all a matter of opinion, that he plays the role pretty well. It's a character, and he's from the theatrical world. So he does play the character, in my opinion, of Freddie pretty well. He's not Freddie, but he plays the role of Freddie pretty well. The fans seem to.
Do you know why John Deacon decided to bow out?
I actually do not know that.
Ken, do you?
I know that John Deacon stopped performing with the group for quite a while ago, as I understand it. I really don't understand why. I'd heard different stories as to why he did.
What did you hear? Because I never heard anything.
The story that I understood was, and again, I'm not quoting any reliable source, so if there's any Queen fans, don't castrate me. But my understanding was that the group wanted to go, perhaps in a business sense, in a different way, and his opinion was it was somewhat disrespectful to Freddie. I also got the sense, and this is just my perception, that perhaps there was a little bit of a control issue with the Brian May clique versus the Deacon clique.
Gotcha.
That's my understanding. But again,
that sounds viable.
Sure,
Right.
that would make sense. Definitely.
Now I want to follow up on what Duke said, because I will tell you where my Queen moment came from. My Queen moment came from Live Aid, because I believe that was the concert in the 80s that they performed
Yes.
at. And that was so epic, because I remember, first of all, when you saw it, I thought on my own, and what did I know? But I thought on my own that was one of the best concert performances I ever saw by a band, whether you like the band or not. And after you read the interviews, even today, that performance is still regarded as one of the best live performances ever. And if you ever read Brian May talk about it, he basically says, we walk out into this stadium that is packed, and Freddie just rose to a different level. And he didn't say the band was behind or trailing Freddie, but he said clearly Freddie just suddenly burst out and took the bull by the horns and ran with it. And that's what made it for me with Freddie, was that I could not imagine a gig he would be intimidated at. Super Bowl, what have you. I think he was just made to perform, and almost like the proverbial all-star, the higher the stakes, the better he performed. I just could not see him having a bad performance, and I could not see him being intimidated, because if he was not intimidated at Live Aid after what he did, and he had that arena, that stadium in the palm of his hands, that was it for me. So I think as a live performer, I kind of agree with Duke. I don't know if I would try and touch even replacing him, even maybe for a little bit of one show, or if you wanted to. I believe George Michael did a little bit of work that he tried a tune or two, but not certainly trying to replace Freddie. I think that he was just too iconic to even consider doing a show. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that would work, because that performance, even to this day, is off the charts. And again, I want to just point out, no pyrotechnics, no swinging on ropes, no drum sets going around in circles and go upside down, nothing. Just Freddie and his half microphone. And that leads me to my second question I want to ask you guys. The Bottomless Mic. So who created the Bottomless Mic? I want to ask you. Here are your choices. And I want you to think about this.
When you say bottomless mic, you mean the top portion of the mic stand that he would have a mic clipped to?
Folks, we're not talking about bottomless as in no pants.
It's like, all right.
So I'd have to say yes.
It is Freddie Mercury we're talking about.
This is a PG-rated show. Come on, dude. Come back to earth here with me. No, I'm only kidding. It is, yes. The bottomless mic is what it's called. Was the idea created by Rod Stewart, Robert Plant, Roger Taylor, Brian May, or none of the above? Duke, what say you?
I say none of the above. I think it was an accident.
Amy?
I'm going with the same exact answer.
Folks, I can't win here. How'd you guys know that?
It was a guess, truly a guess.
Because I know a lot about him.
Are you a sister or something? Are you related or something? Did I miss something here?
I'm not. I'm not from Zanzibar.
That is actually my favorite song by Billy Joel, not to divert Neil Peart.
Yep.
Yes, that is absolutely fantastic. That's it. He Peart, right. He pulled, sorry, Gary Conti. He pulled the microphone out forcefully and it just became his appearance, his image, and it was so great because who would have thought about doing that? And it
was like part of a costume.
It
right?
really, listen, it served his purpose, and
it did.
He just was he was fantastic. Amy, let's talk about some mechanics for a second. Without naming names, some singers do not perform the studio live very well. Some singers have effects on their voice. Talk about the purity of Freddie's voice.
Oh, gosh. So pure.
She's having a moment.
Do you want us to come back?
So as we were talking about before with his vocal range being the 4-octave range, so I don't want to bore anybody with any kind of technicalities, but singers and non-singers, when we speak, we have vocal cords. But above the vocal cords are they're like fake vocal cords. And it actually is like a membrane that is used in ridiculously talented singers, and he was one of them. So that is where that 4-octave range came from. And he had the purity of a tenor, but was actually classified as a baritone, which is in singing, to make it very simple, a tenor is very high-pitched and a baritone is way down in the basement. So he's classified as a basement with a tenor possibility, let's say. And he tended to smoke a lot of cigarettes to give you that growl that he had in his voice. So that was not a natural growl. That was something that he created with smoking cigarettes, which I find really interesting. But there's also the story about the 4 extra teeth in his mouth, that it helped to resonate the tone, but nobody knows if that's actually scientifically true. But the scientific thing is the folds, the folds in the cords.
Now, his teeth, which I never saw anything wrong with his appearance, his teeth caused him concern, didn't they? In terms of appearance.
Sure. I mean, he was, they called him Bucky his whole, school years. It was definitely, he grew the mustache to try to cover that up. And he would talk like this so that nobody was looking at him. Could you still understand me?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
What, Bucky?
He would cover his mouth like this in order to not be seen.
Right.
But at the same time, he did not want to alter his voice, so he never did anything about it.
Right. Similarly to Barbra Streisand, who has,
What was the matter with her teeth?
She has a very large nose.
I was joking.
And I know you are. And she didn't want to affect the resonance in her voice, so she decided to never have a nose job. And same goes for him. He decided to keep all those teeth in his mouth. He had 36 teeth. An adult has 32. And that is why he was there was no place for the teeth to go, so they kind of went outward. and he was afraid to close up that gap because he felt that it would give him more resonance while singing.
Fun fact, that's why he was so thin, because he had 4 extra teeth, so he would chew and he would get the food really, really fine. And that's what made him thin.
Folks, you can't make this stuff up, and this is coming to you free. This is why I don't have cable.
This is total
Freddie
BS.
was,
Total BS, by the way.
That's right. It goes to the BS chapter. So Freddie was a different person. So I'm going to throw another one. I'll try another one out there. It's like trying to strike out Aaron Judge here with these two. Freddie had some odd jobs. Tell me which one of these is false. Freddie was a food store clerk. Freddie was a waiter. Freddie was a restaurant hostess or host, a taxi cab driver, or he was an airport baggage handler. Amy?
Taxi cab driver.
And the question is, which one's false?
Which one is false?
He was a hostess.
Or a host. I guess a hostess would be female, I think. No, actually, he was an airport baggage handler at Heathrow.
But that's the truth.
That's the truth.
That's the truth. That's
you
the
said
false
the
one.
inverse.
Oh, I'm sorry. The false one. I said it backwards. See, folks,
Okay.
I even psyched myself out. Which one is true? Let me ask
You
it
are
that
not.
way.
That's
you are
true.
not Alex Trebek.
I'm in timeout.
You are-
timeout.
You're fired.
I'm in Trebek timeout. Trebek, get in the back. Trebek. I had it backwards, but you guys get the drift. I didn't know that. I'm like, how did he ever want to be an airport baggage handler?
So
at
you
Heathrow?
just blew one of my questions with that question. I'm very upset here.
I blew what? Who did I blow?
I'm going to ask you,
I blew
Which
someone.
of-
I didn't even know it.
which of these was reported as true? Okay. After Freddie's death, an arboretum in France was named after him. That's number 1. Number 2, as his health was declining, Freddie decided to hasten his death by not taking his medication. Number 3, Freddie reluctantly agreed to record The Show Must Go On. Number 4, Freddie wrote Crazy Little Thing Called Love in a Swimming Pool. And number
You're asking
5,
which is false, correct?
which one is true? Which one is true? Which
Okay.
of these is reported as true? And then the last one was about the airport, but that's already done. So we've whittled it down to 4. Which of these was reported as true? After Freddie's death, an arboretum in France was named after him. As his health was declining, this is 2. As his health was declining, Freddie decided to hasten his death by not taking his medication. 3, Freddie reluctantly agreed to record The Show Must Go On. Or 4, Freddie wrote Crazy Little Thing Called Love in a Pool. Ken, what do you got?
I feel like I'm back in high school. Can I pass teach?
Which of those was reported as true?
I'm trying to remember because I saw the show about when they filmed The Show Must Go On, and it was so sad because Freddie was in the late stages, and I'm trying to remember if he wanted to do that or he didn't. I think he reluctantly did that. That's my recollection. He did. I think he wanted to do it. I don't know anything about the Arboretum, so I'm going to go with that.
Okay. Amy,
I'm going with the same.
you're going with...
The arboretum that named after him in France.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got you both. After Freddie's death, a species of yellow flowers was named after Freddie.
Oh my gosh! Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I didn't know that. So Duke,
I didn't know that
score
either.
one. Score one for the Duke.
As Freddie's health was declining, Freddie did in fact decide to hasten his demise by not taking his medication. All he did was take painkillers. He figured, why let this thing linger? I'm just going to ease the pain.
So now that fact I did not know, because what I do know is that his assistant would administer medication through a port that he had. So, and not a nurse, but his assistant. So I thought that I did not know that that was the case, that he had
No.
stopped medication.
It doesn't say how long. I mean, it could have been a week. I don't know. But
A couple of days, yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The show must go on, actually. Brian May was concerned that Freddie wouldn't have enough strength to record. Because
That part I do remember. But the
Freddie
one-
couldn't walk. But Freddie drank a bunch of vodka and said, "I'll effing do it, darling."
Right.
That's
sang-
right.
sang
That's
it in one
exactly
take.
right.
One take.
Right.
Yep.
Which is
You're
crazy.
because he felt that life was for the living. You should live. You shouldn't give up. So while you're here and you're alive, you should live and not sulk in the corner or feel sorry for yourself, but you should always just continue to live until the time comes that you're not alive. So
And then
that's why he
and
said.
that's when you can sulk in the corner.
That's right. And that's when you could cry. All right. So you know what? While we're on this question thing, let me ask you guys a question.
All right.
It's actually similar to Duke's question. Where is the most interesting place that Freddie wrote a song? A, on an airplane. B, in the bathtub. C, in the kitchen. And D, on the beach in Zanzibar. Ken, you're first.
Oh, I know it.
Duke has the smirk on his face. He knows the answer.
I'm not going to say Zanzibar because he was born there, so I don't know why that would be interesting. It would be interesting because a lot of people are not from there, but I guess I'm going to say Zanzibar only because a lot of people are not from there. It's because the other areas you mentioned or the other places people have written music from, so I'm going to say Zanzibar.
But you do know that's where he's from.
No, I do know that's where he's
Okay.
from. I understanding that. I'm thinking how many people have written songs
I got you.
in Zanzibar outside of, I don't think Billy Joel was there when he wrote it, but I'll go with Zanzibar.
Okay. Freddie Mercury wrote Crazy Little Thing Called Love in the bathtub. And he also had somebody bring the piano over to the tub. It was in a hotel.
Guitar.
What was it?
Guitar.
A guitar. Okay. Over to him in the tub in the hotel he was in. And that's where he wrote Crazy Little Thing Called Love.
That is correct. So he wrote Crazy Little Thing Called Love. He was in the bathtub. He had the melody come to him, and he called out to Peter, who was his assistant, and said, hey, he called him Phoebe. Phoebe, bring me my acoustic guitar. So he brought the guitar, and he said it was 3 chords, and that's all he could play on guitar. And he wrote the song in the bathtub.
Crazy.
Pretty
No pun
cool
intended.
stuff.
I am now
intended.
going to get myself an assistant named Phoebe. I like
I
That's
that.
thought
right.
I was your Phoebe. That's what you told me. No, I'm sorry. Yes. Amy, I want to ask you a
All
question.
right.
I want to ask you a question. Freddie did not announce he had a bad medical condition until, as I understand it, the day before he died. He announced that he had AIDS. I think
48 hours.
I think it. Okay, 48 hours. I think it's fair to say that everyone knew there was something wrong. Are you surprised in what you know of Freddie? And Duke, I'll ask you as well. Are you surprised he didn't use more of a platform while he was alive to either discuss the disease or discuss something almost on a, I don't want to say social rights, but are you surprised he did not take more of a personal platform while he was alive? Because everyone knew something was wrong.
So Freddie was a very private person. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
Right.
He tended to not use his stardom as a means to bring the true Freddie out. It was more so, like I said earlier, it was a character. Freddie Mercury was a character and on stage. But off stage, he didn't want anybody to know his personal business, except for he had 5 friends who he felt he let in to his, like, the inner circle. So it doesn't surprise me, no.
Now, hold on a second, though. If he's that private, which I've read, despite the fact that there's so many different sources on Freddie that you almost at times can't tell what is the truth, because you have the band saying this and a biographer saying that. But having said that, why would Freddie simply, when he began to show the physical signs, sadly, the physical signs of his disease, why would he just not stay out of the public limelight completely and just disappear?
Well, I mean, I'll answer and then Duke, you can give your opinion because this is just an opinion question. I feel that he had such a strong love for music that, like I previously said, he was alive and he was going to continue to live no matter what condition he was in, no matter how sick he was. He was going to continue to play music and to enjoy that. And that's my answer. What about you, Duke?
I don't know. I think I've heard it said that, Freddie, if you think about the popularity of the band, it was a pretty long span. And if you look how many interviews he gave during that span, there really aren't a whole lot. There are a lot of people clamoring for him and trying to get information, but I don't think he was as outspoken as you think he was. He was flamboyant as a performer, but I think he kept his interviews few and far between. And it doesn't surprise me. I mean, plus he grew up as a childhood, he was very, very meek, very quiet. And it wasn't until he got, a little bit in his high school years and then went to London where he started, coming out of his shell. So that part of his personality was probably always there, that just quiet kid who just, was by himself. And, I can't envision having to deal with such, at that time, it was a death sentence. So imagine knowing you're done, but you don't know when, that's terrible.
And that's actually a very good point, because not much was known about the disease at that time. And even, right. I think even if you bring up Magic Johnson, when we heard about Magic Johnson, who thankfully is still alive today, everyone thought that was really the end of it. Amy, let me ask you a question, because this is an opinion question, so everyone's entitled to their opinion. Without mentioning names, there are some national acts, some singers who most of them have declined in their voice, which, as I understand it, I'm not a singer, thankfully. I say thankfully for the people who've heard me sing. But the voice naturally declines. If you could envision Freddie today, had Freddie lived, what type of singer do you think he would have been today? Do you think that voice, knowing what you know of it and the mechanics and his will as a performer, do you think he would still be out there doing what he did? Or do you think he would have possibly had to have changed his style to bring it down a little bit, to back it off?
It's a great question. I think that his range absolutely would have lessened. I think that if he had continued to smoke the cigarettes to give himself the natural growl that he had in his voice, that it would have done much more damage than good to the range that he had. However, I believe that he would still be a fantastic singer, just not as rangy of a singer that he was. And in regards to that, Freddie did not have perfect pitch. So for those of you listening or Duke and Ken, perfect pitch is if you told a singer to sing, let's just say a middle C, they could just come out with it. He could not do that. He had what was called relative pitch. So he needed a reference. He needed a guitar to strum or the key on the keyboard, and then he could mimic that note, but he was not able to just sing it without hearing it. So that wouldn't change with age. That would continue to be, the relative pitch thing that Freddie had.
Amy, let me ask you, as a singer, is that unusual? Is that unusual? Can most singers, is that more in the range of most singers can, or most singers can't do that?
Most singers cannot do it. It's actually a real skill. It's all about the ear.
And having been somebody who owned a recording studio for a while, I've had someone who can sing who had perfect pitch, and I could ask them to sing a note, and they could sing a note, and they could identify notes, but they were pitchy as singers, so they could hear it, but they didn't mean their vocal cords could actually replicate it. Because I asked this person to sing, and it was like, whoa.
Well, let me ask, Aim, if based on what Duke said, that is interesting. I didn't know that. Is it better that for a singer that you don't have perfect pitch, but you can, how should I say this? I think you know the question I'm asking.
Okay, I do know the question. So you cannot be a singer without relative pitch.
Correct.
You must have relative pitch. If you have perfect pitch, it's just an add-on.
Okay, fair enough. All right, okay.
Right, you can be a singer with relative pitch, but you can't be a singer without relative pitch.
Correct.
But you can have perfect pitch and not be a singer.
Right. So that's just, again, it's like an ear training technique. And I also believe that it's a gift. I believe that very few people actually have perfect pitch. So,
guys, let's take this away from the voice box for a second. Obviously, Freddie, I know, did play a little bit of guitar, but he definitely played piano. What are your thoughts on Freddie, the musician, not the vocalist? Talent-wise and ability-wise.
Wait, I'm going to guess Amy thinks he was good.
I think everything about him was good.
Did you like his shoelaces? Were they top flight? Were they top shelf?
I said everything.
Okay.
He was actually not a classically trained vocalist. He actually never took voice lessons, but he was a classically trained pianist. So he went to school for boarding school, and he took classical piano lessons. So I think that he was a fantastic piano player. And when you could translate piano into guitar. So, but it's not as easy to translate guitar into piano. So I think that he was an excellent classical musician.
Duke?
Yeah, I think he was awesome. I mean, he took his education and, he was not, what's the word I'm looking for? He used it to the fullest. He created all the ideas in his head, using what he knew, plus just relying on his ideas to create new, boundless things. I'm not expressing myself well.
No, you are. You are. That makes sense.
Good.
And what about again, not the vocalist, and now not even the musician playing an instrument? Talk about his songwriting ability as a songwriter. So, for example, I'll use Billy Joel as an example. In my opinion, and it's just an opinion, I won't say that one person is the best songwriter in the world, but certainly Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, just isolating that alone, are definitely some of the best songwriters ever. What about Freddie Mercury as a songwriter? Composer.
Oh, amazing. He actually struggled with lyrics. He
I
struggled
didn't know
with
that.
writing the lyrics. He did, because he felt that lyrics were so important, that he could put anything to music as far as melodies and harmonies go, but lyrically it was very difficult for him. Yeah. So
I thought he was an incredible songwriter. Incredible.
Oh my God, right? All right, so listen, I just have a couple of questions for you both, okay? It's a little bit of a quiz, so just ask you two if that's okay, and let's see what your answers are. I had to write them down. So, with whom did Freddie collaborate for duet singing? We have A, Elton John, B, Boy George, C, Mick Jagger, and D, Michael Jackson.
That's a tough one. So once again, we have Elton John, Mick Jagger, MJ, hee hee,
And Boy George.
and Boy George. I'm going to say not Elton John because he had Bernie Taupin. And I think that, and you're saying who did he like to collaborate? I'm going to say that,
Who did he collaborate with?
who did he collaborate with? I don't ever remember hearing anything with MJ, so I'm going to throw him out. I think Boy George, I don't see the connection. I'm going to go with Mick Jagger. Duke?
From what I understand, he attempted to collaborate with Michael Jackson multiple times, but they never actually created anything. Is that true?
You are correct that they
He
didn't
always
just
gets it.
attempt.
He always gets. I'm telling you, he always gets it. Did you give me the answer?
Crowd, everybody.
Hello? 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 How did you get the answers? Hello? Did you get the answers? Folks, I'll get some of the answers one of these days, I promise you.
So what happened was they did collaborate and they did record a couple of songs together. And he got really, he meaning Freddie, got really upset with MJ because they were recording in MJ's studio. And he used to bring his llama to the recording. And Freddie was like, get the llama away. So he called on Peter to come and pick him up. And he left the studio in the middle of recording. Years later, one of them, the songs was released. And the other one was actually completed by Mick Jagger with MJ.
Oh, Duke, I get half credit. Come on. We have to. That's a tie. Rock,
That's
paper,
fine.
scissors.
But it wasn't with Freddie. It was with MJ. So Michael Jackson and Mick Jagger wound up completing one of the recordings.
Okay, there's only one way to determine this. Duke, put it up here. Come on.
So
Rock, paper, scissors. Let's go.
Wait,
Rock,
was
paper,
the,
scissors.
was the song? Is there a song that exists with Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury, or no?
There is, and I'm on the spot and I cannot remember the name. I believe that it was, is there more?
Oh wait, it's called the
is there
Queen
more
of
than
Pop.
this? Is Queen of, there you go. That was a good one. That was a very good one. Yeah, but bump. Where are the drums? All right, I've got one more question for you. So we didn't even touch on Freddie's solo album. We didn't even get to that.
How many?
But
And let me ask you this much: how many Queen fans, if you took a guess, if you asked them if they even knew if Freddie had a solo album, how many people do you think would know that if they're Queen fans,
Percentage-wise.
percentage wise? Do you think?
I'm going with a high percentage because if you're a true Queen fan, then you will know that fact. I'll go with 85%.
Really? And how did the album do?
The album was not very successful, but he didn't care.
Okay.
I mean, the reason he didn't care was because it was more of like a disco genre. And he knew he really wanted to do a disco genre. And he knew that there was no way that Queen would ever record a disco record. And he said, I'm doing it on my own. But he was not the first member of the band to go out on their own. It was actually first Roger Taylor. And he followed kind of in his footsteps. He put together this disco type album that was not successful. They had like one top 100 Billboard 100 hit, and that was it. However, after his death, they did on that next album, they did put one of his songs on there. So it was a nice surprise to the fans to hear his voice after death.
And I guess
That's
for those who don't know, Aim, what's the name of the record?
The original record?
Yes.
Mr. Bad Guy. But he actually had two. There was
Right.
a second one that was an opera recording. It was called, I believe it's Barcelona. Am I correct in that?
I'm looking
Oh,
right
ask Duke.
now.
Duke knows it all. Ask Duke. I don't know.
I actually didn't even know about that album, which is crazy because of liking him so much.
Yes,
but
Barcelona. Or is it the
Barcelona.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Never
so I know that we're
Belong.
going to wrap soon.
Never boring? No, Mr. Bad Guy and Barcelona. Yep.
Barcelona, yeah. I know we need to wrap up soon, but I do want to just give one really interesting fact for those fans who don't know this, who are listening right now. This is in regards to Bohemian Rhapsody, the song. There's always that question of where that song came from. What was it actually written about? And it's actually extremely interesting. So it was written 13 years prior to its release. And as we all know, Freddie was, as I mentioned at the beginning, was Farouk, was his real name. And he was grew up in a very religious family where homosexuality, bisexuality was absolutely not accepted. And so the story behind the song is that the man that he killed, Mama, I Killed a Man, was actually the original Freddie Mercury. And the new Freddie was there. And he was kind of coming out as himself. And that silhouette of a man was the old Freddie Mercury, which is pretty interesting to me. But all of that opera singing in the middle of it, you've got the Scaramouche, Galileo, Beelzebub, and Figaro. Those were all band members. So the Scaramouche was Freddie because he was the big clown. And Galileo is Brian May, who was an astrophysicist, Galileo, as you get it. Beelzebub was Roger Taylor because he was the party animal of the band. And then this Figaro, which they're not sure if that was about his cat, who he absolutely adored, Jerry, or was it about the bass player, John Deacon. So that's just a cool little fact that not everybody is familiar with.
I heard Freddie had at some point up to 10 cats.
Freddie was a cat lover for sure.
That's a lot of cats.
And there's, of course, a joke behind that, being that he was likes to call himself bisexual, but a gay man, and they always say that he loved the pussycats.
All right.
The joke? Yeah.
Duke, is your snare drum
What
there?
they say?
Let's hit it.
But that's really you read about it and that's what it says.
Right.
He loves
right,
his pussycats, but he's got male partners.
You know what I find interesting, and I was really into Queen when they were out, and I said like around Live Aid in the '80s, and then I kind of lost touch with them, and not because of the music. I just went in a different direction. Kind of coming back, the question I have for both of you, which is an opinion, I gather, again, is why does it seem that for someone who was so emphatic, who left his mark in this world so dramatically, so powerfully, who's still remembered today as perhaps more than he was before, why does it seem that it's so hard to find definitive sources about Freddie's life? Because I remember reading reviews about the movie, and even though Brian May and Roger Taylor were intimately involved, there were people criticizing the movie saying it's not accurate. You read reviews and critiques about the biography written about Freddie, and people say that's not accurate. Why does there seem to be this elusive element with Mr. Mercury where there doesn't seem to be one definitive source who can say this is actually what happened? It's almost interesting to watch people's different versions. And I thought when the movie came out, knowing that Brian May and Roger Taylor were there, I would assume that would be the most accurate since they were in the band. It wasn't written by someone who perhaps was out of the band. But why do you think for someone who was so popular, so well-known, so hawked, so anticipated in his career and even in his death, why do you think it's so hard to really find out what really happened?
Duke?
I think it's the same as we said before. He's a quiet, close to the vest man who, enjoyed his privacy. And, in the movie, they didn't talk about when they went to South Africa and that whole, that didn't happen in the movie, and there was a lot of uproar about them going to, South Africa during the time. That was one of my issues that, it painted just a great picture and there was it seemed to lack a little bit of, well, what about this part of reality, So, but I think it's just a simple answer is I think he was a private man.
Yeah, but wait a minute though. Let's pursue this. Let's unwrap this a little bit. If he's a private man, he played at least at one time and perhaps for the whole time in the world's top paid rock band. He was one of the most recognizable figures on the planet. Where could he go that he wouldn't be recognized or known? And we know a lot about other people We know a lot about what happened with other rock stars or other musicians. How could he hide? How could he avoid?
Well, he couldn't because he was, like I said before, ubiquitous. He was everywhere and he was known everywhere, but he was very, very private in his person, off stage. But he knows that as soon as he walked out of that house, that apartment, wherever it was that he was a hotel room, people would recognize him. And so he put his entertainer on immediately, but behind closed doors, he was very, very private.
I just find it as a casual observer, as a casual Queen fan, I just find it interesting that there's so much debate that I read, and by all means, I don't know nearly as much as you both do about Queen. I just find it interesting that there's such discrepancies that where people will say, well, that's good, but that's not true. And they'll see something else, say, that's good, but that's not true. Well, where's the truth in all this? What do we actually know about Mr. Mercury?
That is the reason that he is my one person that I would like to sit down with and have a conversation with. That is the reason right there, because there are so many questions left in the air about who really was Freddie Mercury. Who was he?
Well, we know, like you said, and you did a great job, like you both said, you both did a great job. You guys demonstrated his technical abilities, his songwriting abilities, his ability as a musician, but all the other things, and Duke kept going in and out with this, saying, well, they left this part out. I don't know if that's true. And I just find that very interesting, because I would think it would be easy to document. Even back then, pre-digital age, I would think it'd be very easy to document and find out some of this stuff. Maybe TMZ didn't exist, but I'm sure there was some form of TMZ. And I mean, I wonder if we know more about Duke than we know about Freddie Mercury. Aim, what about that? What say you?
It's a possibility.
Okay.
It's a possibility.
Okay. All right.
If you know,
maybe Duke is Freddie Mercury. Duke, let me see your teeth.
Oh,
we'd
good
love
one,
to hear
Ken.
your comments. Put your comments below, or send in your comments about Freddie, because he was an amazingly interesting human being, a talented, gifted human being that fortunately we have his music to, listen to for as long as recorded music exists. So that's a great thing. Amy, thanks for putting this together for us.
Very, very true.
Oh, my pleasure. I like I said, someday he'll be one of my 5 people that I meet in heaven.
Well, he was absolutely terrific. So I guess on that note, guys, Duke, what are we going to say to the folks out there?
We say goodnight, Gracie.
We say something else, don't we?
We say, if you like what you heard, please subscribe on our YouTube channel. And please find us on the Upbeat Hang podcast on Facebook, as well as Instagram. And give us a review.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, listen, that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I hope you guys did. I really did learn a lot. I knew the music, but I really didn't know very much about Freddie. I knew he was a fantastic singer, but I certainly learned a lot, and I enjoyed that very much. So I thank you both.
Thank you.